Every once in a while, I encounter a certain kind of young guy who's like very anxious with like an excess of energy and no real outlet for it. And you can feel the anxiety oozing off of them because they want to be doing more with their life. Not in like a career way, but existentially. In terms of society, they want to find their place to contribute, and they can't find it. Whenever I meet these guys, the thought I always have, and it sounds kind of messed up, is you were supposed to die in battle. In any other point in history, you would have caught an axe to the back of your head and you would have been trampled by a horse or something, and that's how you would have gone out. But through some cosmic accident, you were born now, and that's just not going to happen for you. It's so easy to make fun of like the Jordan Peterson types who talk about, masculinity and the masculinity crisis or whatever. But those guys are not imagining the fact that throughout history, men sought glory and meaning through war and battle and sacrifice. And as much as like most qualities of masculinity are now kind of rightly seen as toxic, throughout history, those were the things that led men into battle. Those are the things that, led them to glory and cultural recognition. And they very rarely exist in modern society. Even, obviously you still can join the military, but most wars that are fought now are not particularly glorious. They are at best morally ambiguous and clearly fought for some sort of larger, neoliberal business purpose. And even if you want to, serve your community, serve your city, working as like a firefighter or, a police officer or something, even those jobs don't really have glory anymore because they're caught up in you get caught up in a bureaucracy. You have to join the union or something, and it's a lot of paperwork. Maybe you want to be a doctor and you want to help people that way. You want to, work in medicine. But that is even more bureaucratic. That is even more paperwork. And even though there are moments of helping people, it's not war. It's not satisfying in the way that swinging an axe and, lighting a castle on fire must have been satisfying to men of that era. So what you end up with instead of the glories of war is these men currently are channeling that same energy, that same anxiety into self-improvement, into waking up at 4 a.m. and taking a cold shower and swinging the kettlebell around and then going to the gym and, making a video where you add dramatic music. The problem with self-improvement, it's in the title, is that it's for yourself. That is why self-improvement is always kind of an empty pursuit in the end, because there's no transcendence in self-improvement. You are training for war without going to war. And going to war was not glorious in itself. The reason why going to war was glorious was because you were doing it for the sake of others. It was not sacrifice for its own sake in the cold bath sense, but sacrifice for the sake of helping your community, of saving your country, and, God save the Queen. But you don't get that by going to the gym. No matter how much you work out and how much broccoli and chicken breast you eat, you're never going to transcend yourself. Because all you're doing is working to build up your own ego. The other place that this kind of manifests, other than just going to the gym, is like business. The cult of entrepreneurship is driven by sort of a misplaced ambition. And you see like Mark Zuckerberg, he's really into like Augustus Caesar. He's really into like the Holy Roman Empire. And I think he like even named his kids are all named like Caesar and like Brutus or something. But what's so silly about this and the entire this obsession with the Roman Empire that so many of these guys have is that, I mean, you're Mark Zuckerberg. You're not Augustus Caesar or Marcus Aurelius. You made Facebook. You made an app for people to play Farmville and rip each other off on Facebook Marketplace. You're not leading an army to battle and expanding an empire. You built an advertising network. That's the problem, is that you can't use the metaphor of war to describe anything other than war without slipping into absurdity. The Spartans were Spartans because they were training for battle. They weren't doing it just to feel good, just to live up to an ideal. There was an actual need for it. There was a purpose. No matter how much you hype yourself up, and no matter how much dramatic music you listen to, and how much you read about the Battle of Thermopylae or whatever, it's like you are a real estate agent in Florida. This is not war. And the more you pretend that it is war, the further away you are getting from actual reality. The further away you're getting from actually helping somebody. And the thing with the supposed crisis of masculinity is that, I mean, the role of women in society has changed drastically over the past 50, 60, 70 years, which is good. And these are all necessary changes. But it's absurd to think that the role of women can change while the role of men would remain static. So what you end up with is guys complaining that they can't be men. They're saying that, oh, something is being taken from them. And nothing is being taken. It's just that the qualities you have developed are no longer necessary. The problem isn't that men can't be men. It's that nobody needs you to be a Roman emperor. The saying is, when in Rome, do as Romans do. There should be a corollary to that saying, which is, when you're not in Rome, stop acting Roman. You look silly. And here's the thing about glory. The concept of glory is that it seems kind of silly now because all it is really feeding is your own self-image and your ego. But the thing about glory and fighting in war was it wasn't just about helping, and it wasn't just about doing good things. There's a reason why they had parades for soldiers, because it wasn't just about doing a good thing. It was about being seen doing that good thing and being acknowledged. And that's what all these dudes really want. These guys who are waking up in the middle of the night to go run, wind sprints and deadlift, kettlebells and shit. That's all they want, is somebody to recognize them and say, you're doing something important. The problem is, you're not doing something important. And look, I'm not saying don't work out. Do whatever you want. But you got to recognize the reason why you're adding dramatic music to your videos. Because if your video didn't have dramatic music and the Hans Zimmer score, you would look like a guy who's just running at the gym, because that's all you are. You would look like a guy who owns a drop shipping business, or who, runs some sort of business in Florida where you own a boat and you rent out your boat. You are not fighting a war. What's so funny is that a lot of these guys, like Mark Zuckerberg types, they always embrace stoicism. It's always Marcus Aurelius meditations. That's what they're always trying to push on you. But Stoicism, the reason why Stoicism doesn't really fit the situation you're in, and the reason why you can kind of tell these guys are not particularly fully embracing Stoicism as a concept, is the fact that you can't be stoic and seething with rage at the same time. You can't be stoic and just longing for past glory and thinking about yourself wearing a toga and living in ancient Rome and riding an elephant or something, because that is not acceptance. Stoicism is at its core radical acceptance. It is not wishing things were different. It is not longing for the past or trying to cosplay some sort of glory out of your gym workout and your, small business that you started. Stoicism is accepting the way things are and accepting the fact that the qualities that you associate with masculinity are not particularly needed in the moment. Maybe it'll come up. Maybe there will be a war and they're going to point at you and say, hey, go take care of this for us. But in the meantime, that's probably not going to happen.